do this to the American people. At this time, I yield 5 minutes to my good friend from Iowa, Mr. King.
The gentleman from Iowa is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I thank the chairman of the Subcommittee of Appropriations on HHS, Congressman Rehberg, for yielding. And I want to declare my support for this amendment, and I think he's happy if I refer to it as a Rehberg amendment. And I want to also thank Denny Rehberg for the work that he has done on this. You know, America will never know, Mr. Chairman, how much work went into crafting this amendment to get this fix that does a little bit to take us down the road. And boy, it is important to me to see $100 million cut out of the resources that would be used to implement Obamacare. And Mr. Chairman, I'm also very confident in declaring it to be Obamacare. I listened to President Obama address it as Obamacare on February 25th of last year at the Blair House during the Health Care Summit. I thought that was the source of the moniker Obamacare, was the president himself. And if anyone thinks otherwise, I think they should look back and check the record. Obamacare is this. It's not $1 trillion in deficit over 20 years if we don't go through with this atrocity. It's $2.6 trillion in spending in the first full decade, according to the chairman of the Budget Committee, Paul Ryan. $2.6 trillion in spending. We're here in this CR to cut spending. We know that we have to go into a national era of austerity because of the overspending that's taken place over the last 4 years in particular, and the last 2 years in a hugely significant way. We're looking at a budget now that's proposed, a deficit proposed by the president of $1.65 trillion. And if you roll back to the full federal outlays in 1997, $1.6 trillion. The on-budget items 2002, $1.6 trillion, and we have that much deficit proposed by the president. We want to shut off $2.6 trillion worth of irresponsible spending. We want to preserve the liberty and the freedom of the American people and the best health care system in the world. That's why you see Shakes planes landing in places like Rochester, Minnesota, to get health care that they can't get in other places in the world. If Michael Moore thinks Cuba has the best health care system, I suggest he swim there. This country, we need to preserve the system we have and expand it. The Rehberg Amendment helps slow down this implementation that is going on in an aggressive fashion by the Obama administration. Now, I happen to have in my hand, Mr. Chairman, this is an excerpt from a CRS report that tells you how duplicitous this bill read once one picked it up and read it, the 2,500 pages. And in here are multiple places, over 50 places, where Obamacare actually not just authorizes, but it also appropriates. Not completely unprecedented, but it is the largest, most substantial effort to trigger automatic spending that goes on in perpetuity, Mr. Chairman. The number here is not $100 billion. The number on this CRS report is $105.5 billion over the next 10 years. And in the balance of this fiscal year, it's $4.95 billion that we're having trouble getting at. Thanks to Denny Rehberg, we're getting at $100 million. And I believe this amendment will pass today, and it will go on this CR, and it will become a significant leverage point over in the United States Senate. Other components of this that need to be ripped out. Now, oh, wait a minute, I forgot to remind you, again, H.R. 2, full repeal of Obamacare. I was pleased to see language that I had worked on and drafted for all those months went over to the Senate, where every Republican voted to repeal Obamacare. Here we had bipartisan support for the repeal of Obamacare, 3 times the bipartisan support described by then Speaker Nancy Pelosi. And we sat here now with America that has 2/3 of them by the polling has rejected Obamacare. In this bill, another piece that reads deceptively is this: the authority for the Secretary of Health and Human Services to do interdepartmental transfers in any amount greater than the 2008 budget bill, which means slush funds all through that department to aggressively implement Obamacare. The Rehberg Amendment shuts off some of that, probably not all of that, but it gets at it and it lays the point out, and I hope that we can do better on some of the others into the future. We also need to understand that when America has rejected a piece of legislation that so upsets all of our lives and takes away so much of our liberty and freedom, takes away our ability to buy a health insurance policy that is high deductible, high co-payment, and low premium, that we have many more good solutions that will unfold here. This bill is unconstitutional in 4 places at least. 2 federal courts have ruled so. We know that it will eventually get to the Supreme Court, and we can never say with certainty what the result will be, but we know the certainty of the 2 federal courts, Mr. Chairman, and we must have the Rehberg Amendment so the American people are dealt with the respect and honor of their justice, in their opinion. H.R. 1 cuts the funding, H.R. 2 repealed. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I thank the gentleman from Montana, and I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentlelady from Connecticut.
Let me just reiterate again. This amendment would not create jobs. It would not do anything to reduce the deficit. In fact, by the CBO numbers, it would increase net budget authority in the bill by $2 billion next year, a total of $5.5 billion over the next several years. It increases the deficit. Let's keep hitting it on that point. Mr. Levin of Michigan is recognized for 2 minutes.